Hi, everyone. Lisa and Dan here from Fireside Strategic. We're on a mission to help business leaders achieve great results through human-centered strategy. In the Fireside Chat series, we're showcasing how leaders unite strategic yet human thinking in leadership and how today they're transcending the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, we're chatting with Randy Long, CEO of Long Business Advisors. Randy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you. It really is.
So could you tell us a little bit more about Long Business Advisors? What is it that you do?
Sure. Our business was originally created as an exit planning company, which basically it's business consulting, but with a definite view towards preparing the company and the business owner for either an exit that is a transition or a third-party sale. Once in a while, we'll have some go to employees, but most of our stuff is either transition to the kids or transition to a third-party sale kind of a thing. So
we're at this interesting inflection point in the economy, I think, in which a lot of baby boomers are looking to make that transition. And so important to think through a succession plan so that we know who's taking it over and what's going to happen when they take it over, right? But so many people haven't had the chance to make that plan.
Yeah, and the succession plan, just to draw a little distinction because I'm a lawyer too, a succession plan really ultimately kind of deals with who's going to take over the business, whereas the exit planning is a broader planning. It's dealing with the personal life, getting their family ready to make sure they've got adequate funds and what they're going to have left with and how do they live out of it and how does the business owner transition himself or herself to have some sense about they're going to something instead of from something. So that it's much greater than succession planning, just to say that.
So does it involve a lot of aspects of just the business strategy and growth?
Yeah. We early on in our work, we gather information on the personal side of their personal finance world, as well as gathering in-depth information about the company. We use a software program that was designed by an M&A firm that we do some work with that helps us get, it basically uploads 36 months of rolling data. So it gives us a really, really pretty view of what's happening inside the company. It's being used as banks. One of the things it does is it helps identify whether or not a company is too indebted, or how much would a bank loan to them safely, if you will, how efficient they're using their capital. It gives a whole bunch of metrics. So and that's just one of the pieces, just the debt side. But it gives us about 100 to 120 pages worth of in-depth analysis by the time we're finished on the company. And then we usually target those things that are weak to work on. And so it gives us a lot of pieces to start with. And it isn't so much always that we're doing all of that work. A lot of times, like we just ran one for a company that we do business with that's about $160 million. And they want to use it every quarter so that they can look at all of the metrics that they've chosen as being that they were weak at, especially because they already have a CFO and they're smart people, obviously. But there were a number of things that were disclosed to them which they were unaware. And so it's a good place for us to start on the business side. And then, of course, we kind of delve into the business, who the shareholders are and structure and all those things too early on. But it sort of sets the table for us when we do that background work on both sides as to the future. And of course, that's driven also largely based on what their own particular goals are. So,
speaking of background work, and that all makes sense, I'm curious, what got you into the business in the first place, Randy?
Well, I used to, when I was growing up, I worked for a number of independent business owners. I loved the type of person they were. I loved the freedom, not so much that they don't work hard, but that they own their own schedule and their time. And so I have built my life around doing business that allows me to do that. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not practicing full-time law anymore, because even then I protected my time as much as I could, because I have 5 children and I don't measure life by business per se here. So, but it gave my family and me a good lifestyle, and I still appreciate it, So I work at my hours, and we don't take a lot of clients. I mean, we typically run somewhere between 7 on the low end and up to 15. That's all we run on our long business advisors at any given time. Don't want to grow it. Just love exactly where I am. I work super close with my daughter, Ellen, she's got an MBA and a CFP, and she's super smart. She brings to the table some things that I don't have, just like you guys. It's kind of like that.
It's too many amazing things to pick up on there. I thought that was a brilliant answer. I mean, the first thing, I was going to say former lawyer, you're still practicing in some ways. I'm not. As a lawyer, someone with that mentality, I know about the relationship with time that the legal profession tends to create. And at least just for me, it wasn't very intentional or comfortable. It meant that not only did I have very little control over my schedule, it created a feeling that I had very little control over my life.
Yeah.
And that's an uncomfortable feeling. And you grow to see life that way. You see nothing different. So you don't realize that actually it doesn't have to be that way.
That's right.
And I think there's something interesting about the fact that you've been so intentional about how you live your life. I see that both in this issue of time and how you protect your time, but also in you're not trying to grow your company to $10 trillion. A lot of people have this default assumption that you must grow your company to $10 billion to have a greater impact, but that doesn't seem to be how you roll.
No, and I don't encourage my clients to do anything that isn't kind of who they are, because I don't want them to build a company for sale if they love the business and they'd love to transition it to their kids. And I love families that retain companies for generations, and I've worked with a number of them. I got into this exit planning business as a result of all the business planning I did and transactions that I did for business owners during the course of all my years as a lawyer. So I've really been doing the exit planning work. I started doing it as a lawyer. I found it too constricting to be the lawyer, because who's my client and all these kinds of problems. You understand that. So I got rid of that, started a company about 9 or 10 years ago, and added my daughter Ellen to the planning level part of this 7 years ago. So I've just been having, honestly, the most fun I've had in my whole life in work. And I love the people, and I love having, intimate relationships with my clients. Most of our clients stay. We don't have a tremendous turnover. We're terrible marketers. It's just kind of who we are. We're strategists. We're not marketers. But, the good Lord sends us people. We get referrals from CPAs and attorneys and other clients. I mean, I got 2 referrals yesterday that we're looking into. So we have a little bit of space to add. We almost always seem to have a couple of slots open just because there's some work out. But a lot of our clients, the average work for us is 2 to 3 years probably. I've had cases go as long. I have one right now, and it's 8th year, because they just keep growing and changing, and they don't want to let us go. So those are the fun parts of life. You just get to work with people you really like.
There's so much in there that I like. One of the first things that you said was that you help clients build businesses that are aligned with who they are, and that you really value fun in business. And it seems that kind of the second part of your answer about clients staying with you for such a long time is directly related to that first part.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. So one of our core values is also helping clients find the business that is aligned with who they are as humans, beyond just kind of the standard financial P&L analysis. And how do you balance that, advising clients to do the financially smart thing, the strategic thing, yet also helping them do the thing that aligns with who they are as humans?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's part of the reason why in our process, we spend a lot of time very early getting to know the people to know the business, to know the extended family, how the family is put together, what are their values, how are they built, what's important to them. I mean, I've topped out, sometimes we manage sales of companies, and I've done a number of those, probably from about 10 million, 5 million up to 200 million. So I understand that basic world, but I've talked more people out of selling their businesses than I have worked through the sale of businesses with them, because I see that if they're not suited, and this is true a lot of times for business owners, they love what they do, they're very good at what they do, and it's actually, they can manage the risk inside of that business extremely well, even though there's a concentration of wealth in the business, and we work to diversify it and do other things. But it's also, if they've survived a long time, or the family's survived a long time, that means that they are nimble and smart. And for them to leave the business, sell the company, pay the taxes, go out, reinvest the money, and then have to learn to live out of a portfolio without tax benefits, because we build a ton of tax benefits into our business owner's life as they own the business, you know. So for them to drop all of that and then go into running a portfolio of, let's say, $30 million instead of a business worth 40, they can't reinvest the money and make the kind of money out of that they're making right now. Almost never. So, and also a lot of them just aren't suited to live out of a portfolio because the markets are uncomfortable for them. That's true of a lot of entrepreneurs. They think that they're managing risk themselves when they manage their company. It gives them a leg up, but they really don't have a leg up in the markets per se. So, you know, there's truth to both sides of that. And we do like I said, we do like diversification, but we want them to have what they really should have, not what we have predetermined for them, you know.
There's an asset class, there's asset class performance in general, and then there's the human behind the asset, right? What is the human's relationship to each asset? That's right.
And my son is, like I said, I have 5 children. My oldest boy is working as a wealth manager, and his specialty is behavioral management of money, basically. So yeah, it's a big deal. And I especially enjoy working with a second to third generation transition, or a fourth to fifth. I mean, I've had some where I actually started at the beginning of my career with these families, and 2 of these families in particular. One of them went from, when the clients hired me were the old generation. And so they're in their late 80s at the time. And so we've transitioned now 4 generations for that family since I started. So it's really super fun to watch it and to see how these families transfer values of who they are down through the generations. I mean, it's a very intentional thing, and it's a determiner of success and long-term viability of a company.
It's so funny how it's so important for a company to have strong values to align their organization to. And what you're talking about, when you have 4 generations where the family values and the company values almost become one, it creates such strong values.
It really does. And it's just such a pleasure to work with these people too, let me tell you.
So, you know, changing gears a little bit, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the business landscape quite dramatically. I'm curious, how has it impacted your line of work, and how have you dealt with the challenges?
We've actually we've been super busy, basically as a result of it. We've had some people come to us that we had on our radar before this, but they didn't think that they needed us, kind of a thing. And then, you know, 2 or 3 months ago, we get the emergency phone calls. Oh my God, all the things you talked to us about, you know, preparing for recession. How do you defend yourself against, you know, downturns and losses during hard times? Because part of what we do, it's sort of split between growing the company to the extent that makes sense, and also building in defense, because what we don't know is the future. And as a result of that, so the exit planning piece makes me think, well, what happens if the client dies? How will the company survive? Who's going to run it? Will the employees stay? Think all these kinds of things. So you're working on both the defense side and the offense side. And then we put out a piece out about six months ago or so that had to do with preparing for recession, because we're eventually getting one. We're at the long end of the cycle. Cycles and these things tend to run 7 years or so, 7 or 8 years. We're like out at 9 or 10 at this one. So we're way out there. So we had this checklist we built, and we went through it with all of our clients. Now, interestingly enough, two of them left us during that period because they were all about the growth. Both of them came back and apologized, of course, for not doing the work all the way through and trying to pick the things that they wanted out of what we did, which is essentially what they were trying to do. So we like to run our process, although we do have to sometimes put out fires when we first come into a company because they've got an immediate need. But it's usually not a good idea to let them do too many of those things, because they get those things done and it makes them feel like they're good now, So, but the preparation for the recession was a big piece. We were ahead of it with all of our clients. And on top of that, we picked up 3 clients, I think, in the last 3 months that needed the work, and it's been really busy, but really a lot of fun. All of our people have survived. I would say 2/3 of them are thriving through it. And it's basically because they, like I said, if they're good at their business, if they can have some help in certain things and they're already nimble in their own minds and understanding their marketplaces and all those. So we have had everything from, companies that were doing business overseas through China to consulting firms to, financial advisory firms so all of these have different kinds of challenges, but, beer distributors, we got all kinds of different clients. It's makes it really fun for me, but the rules are still basically the rules,
So many, again, as with all of your answers, so much richness and so many things to pick up on. I think that variety of clients is a really interesting piece. There's conventional wisdom of whenever you're running a services business, you need to find one type of client. You need to structure all of your marketing and all of your growth efforts around finding one type of client and solving one problem. But you're a generalist business in a lot of ways. You have a variety of clients and you really do help solve a variety of problems.
That's right. So as a lawyer, and I'm a certified financial planner and a lawyer. Those are part of my background, and a certified exit planner. So I have all this background that I've used over the course of my career. And I've done so many different types of business transitions and transactions that it really, the industry, I don't have to be an expert in the industry to add a tremendous amount of value for the work that we're doing. I have yet to find it to be a limitation. So.
And I think another important element in what you say, you talk about in the moment of a crisis, we learn so much more about who we are as a company, and we learn about whether we truly stick to our values or not. Is when the chips are down, are we who we say we are? And I think you talk about the values your clients have, but then there's also the values your company has. And you talk about the importance of having family with you. You've got, I know, family with you, like you've been saying. And so I'm curious, what is that experience like working with family, having them so close to you?
Once in a while there's challenges, but I've had tons of employees over my life, and working with my family, and I've worked with, as my kids grew up, I made them all basically work with me at some level in the business. They all started cleaning bathrooms and emptying trash. but as they, grew up through the skill sets that they've got, they have all had stints in my offices. I have a lawyer, I've got a consultant, I've got a financial planner. I've got my youngest son is going to be an engineer. And my oldest daughter, was kind of an outlier, the first and last ones. The three in the middle are business people like me with big picture thinking. But she is a journalist, and my youngest one is a math science person, which is from my wife's side. My family is not math science. So, but yeah, I was thinking too about the question you asked about the difficult times. One of the things that we have pushed real hard to our clients is that we can't do business out of fear. We can't live out of fear. We have to, and this is partly why I think I love business owners, because they tend to be people with chutzpah. They've got pride at some level that they think they can pull it off. They're willing to take some risk. But sometimes, when things start to turn on them, they can also let things get a little dark. And so I always tell them, the good Lord doesn't bring you to fear. You have to deal with the fear. We don't want to be making decisions or be driven by it. We're going to work through it, right? Because all that fear, and like I had one of the clients I was telling you about that came back to us that didn't want to work with us, for some time. And then all of a sudden they quote unquote needed us. Those people, when they came in, they were literally like jelly. They couldn't make a decision. There were so many things happening around them and so many moving parts that they felt like deer in the headlights. So we just they came in and we helped them just to give them some ideas and send them on their way. They didn't even hire me. But a week later they came back and said, we got more help and more clarity out of the free 2 hours you gave us than we've had from all of our other advisors in the last 10 years. So they hired back onto us, and we went through and we started doing, I always say, let's do the next thing, right? You can't do everything at one time. Let's identify what we're going to do, where we're going, and then you eat the elephant one bite at a time. But if you're working through it, it also gives you peace of mind because you're doing what you can do and what you should do. And being who we are, again, back to being true to who we are and who we're called to be and how we're supposed to live. We can't let the business part from the outside come in and destroy everything else about who we are and how we think, what our backgrounds are, where we're going. We just have to grow. That's all.
Yeah. So much about that. I love, first of all, the two Jews that are interviewing you really enjoy the mention of chutzpah. That's the first thing. But then the second thing is that I've been thinking about this issue of fear a lot lately. You and I talked offline about it. And for me, one of the antidotes to fear is love. So we feel fear within us. Someone comes to us that we can serve. And the loving thing to do is not necessarily to jam the sales pitch down their throat. The loving thing to do is to serve them beautifully. And if you just do that, there's nothing to fear. You'll get more than enough business.
Yeah, no, it's, we've never run out of work. It's gotten slow a few times, but we've always had plenty to live well and do well. And so I don't let fear rule my life. And even when we were building the company, I remember, this is an interesting point that came to my mind here. It includes family in the mix of this risk thing. So my daughter, when she came to work with us, of course, we were busy early on and did really well. And then we had this period where we went through, which was kind of flat. Not that we weren't making, that we had a good business or we were making money. All those things were still true, but there wasn't any real growth. It was just kind of flat. And so she was thinking that maybe we should move down market so we could get a lot more work. And my whole practice is built around fewer, not more. Again, I want deeper and wider relationships, not more relationships. And besides that, I tried to get across to her that people they're not coming to us and investing in us because of time. They're coming to us because they want mind space. They want to know that we're thinking about their business with them. If I've got a problem I'm working on with them and I'm dealing with it, I know that if I sleep over it, on that issue, in a day or two or three, the good Lord will give me the answer that I need, and we go ahead and we resolve those problems, and we keep moving forward. So I talked her out of wanting to move down market, even though she was afraid a little bit, But I think it's turned out clearly to be the right, because she loves her business, she loves the flexibility, she loves the variability of it all, and she makes good money. So, that's a combination answer, I guess.
Like you struck a great balance. Look, Randy, as we come to the end of our time together, a question that we like to wrap up all of our interviews with is, look, we've talked about a lot of very serious and beautiful topics here, and we talked about work, but outside of work, what are you doing for fun these days? We've been locked up in one way or another for a while. How are you keeping yourself entertained?
Well, this COVID thing, I have not lived in fear over this thing. I think if the good Lord wants to take me home, I'm going to go. And until then, I'm going to live the life I'm called to live. And so I've been, we play tennis, we go on walks, we go, I haven't flown just because I don't like the idea of wearing masks for hours on end. I could travel a lot, and I always have traveled a lot, but I'm doing a lot more by Zoom now, obviously. But as far as my living, sort of locally, I'm living well into my normal life. I'm still going to the beach. I bought myself a new gorgeous surfboard recently. I grew up surfing. And so, we've had some cool surf trips in the not too distant past. And my kids have all kind of come home this summer, so we'll do a lot of surfing together.
Well, look, Randy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I think we learned a lot, and I love your approach to life and to business. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, and I've loved the time with you. You guys have a cool thing going there.
Thank you.
I know. I understand it.
All right.